And we then move to item 14, which is the Wey Hill Car Park Authority to apply for deregistration of common land. I've got Councillor Round down to speak on that item. Councillor Round?
Thank you, Leader. I think there are two major points here, and conscious of how quickly 4 minutes erodes if you rub it on, I'm going to cut some of the detail out. A, there's swapping the land for some other land so that it can be dealt with, because at the moment I think the parking is illegal under strict law. And secondly is the issue of surfacing the car park and charging to pay. 5 years ago that proposal was tried and it was met with a lot of public resistance and it was shelved, basically saying, please Waverley, can you wait until the neighbourhood plan has got a little bit more traction and we might find out what it is that people want to do with that land. Because frankly, I agree, it is a bit of an eyesore. Unfortunately, the neighbourhood plan isn't there yet, but it's not far away, I think. It's riding on the back of some of our local plan 1, etc. And it's clear that the consultation taken so far, is agreement that this land should be developed to the benefit of the community, maybe some eye-catching facility there, or maybe just housing, but with a car park underneath it, because we're very short of parking space in Haslemere. My point is, please, not quite yet. Let's see if that turns out to be the agreed post-referendum view of residents that they want that to happen to this land. I think there are a number of statements and claims in the paragraphs on page 145 and the next one or two. And as I said earlier, I'm not going to go into the detail of them, but basically, I'm not sure there's any opposition to commuters parking there. We know, because we surveyed them a few years ago, it is mostly commuters from well outside of Haslemere. And if they have to pay to park there, many of them won't, and they'll go and throttle the residential streets again, thus negating what we might have achieved with expanding the station car park. I know street parking is not an issue this council can deal with, it's to do with Surrey, and we wish they would take steps to ameliorate the pain that residents feel. So really I'm saying, let's wait a bit and consult. There isn't anything in these pages here, although when I spoke to Councillor Edwards the other day, he assured me, of course, we're going to consult. Well, let's see it agreed in writing. Let's see that we are going to consult the residents as to what they want to do with that land. And the parking, there would have to be some charge if it's redeveloped. One would hope that the local shopkeepers and their staff are treated well. But the second point, and I'm running out of time, is the land swap. I do think we have to be very careful here, otherwise we might become a laughingstock. How many of you have visited this land that's proposed to swap? It's rubbish. It's partly used as a tip. It is smaller than the existing one. To say it's increased value from ecological purpose might be true, because a car park's a car park. But to say it's of equivalent size, amenity and monetary value, it plainly isn't. The Wey Hill car park will be worth millions if it could be developed. This land that you're proposing to swap it with will never be worth anything. It's also publicly accessible at the moment anyway. So if you can't take the land you'd previously thought of in Tanner's Lane, neither can you take this. You need mountaineering skills to go on it. I tried. I didn't go far. I hadn't got any abseiling rope. It is very steep. It is, frankly, a joke. And that's what I've heard people say in Haslemere. We would be laughed at if we continue to propose this land as the swap. It would be far better to revert to what we had as the intention 5 years ago, which is referred to in these pages. How well timed was that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Round. Colleagues, Councillor Edwards, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I'm coming back on behalf of Councillor Bolton and myself, actually. The area known as the Wey Hill Fairground car park, it's an area designated as common land. Okay. It is, however, being used for free car parking for several decades, and in its current condition, is no longer of any ecological value or suitable for use as common land. That's obvious. Car parking on the majority of the site is predominantly commuter parking, and previous surveys done by one of our members here and a member of the Town Council have confirmed that 80% plus of these commuters travel in from out of the borough to catch the train to London and make little, if any, contribution to the local economy or community. A parking place order was introduced several years ago, introducing limited waiting in part of the car park to ensure that some space was kept available for shoppers and visitors to local businesses. And that car park was not completely filled with commuters. This has proved effective to date, but is reliant on effective enforcement. The car park surface is also in need of constant repair, and therefore a source of funds to pay for this is also essential. There's a need to regularise the position regarding parking and identify another area to replace it as common land. Deregistration of the land as common land was investigated in 2012, but at that time was not pursued by the council. So we're now in 2018, and we're in a worse position. Broader discussions about the future of this site, along with several other potential sites in Haslemere, are under discussion by the borough and town councils and other interested groups as part of the broader place-shaping agenda. These discussions and any subsequent developments will take several years to evolve. And we were talking not 2 or 3 years, we're talking several years. And in the interim, it is recognised that something needs to be done, and we need to do it to improve the deteriorating condition of the site and to regularise its use as a car park for both commuters and for the local community and businesses. It's essential. Otherwise, the businesses will close. If people can't park and visit the businesses, you might as well pack up. An area of land has been identified as an alternative for designation as common land. And discussions have taken place with Natural England, who recognise the lack of amenity or ecological value on the Wey Hill site and are supportive of the land swap. That's Natural England. It is of equivalent size to the area subject to the deregistration application. So it's the same size, or very nearly the same size, or slightly bigger, It's within a short walking distance via a footbridge over the railway and will be made accessible for considerable improved community use compared with the current site. The Executive is therefore recommended to support the proposed exchange of these areas of land to enable the resurfacing of the land currently used for car parking and enable it to be managed more effectively, pending the development of long-term proposals for its use. And that's all I can recommend. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Can I ask Mr. Bainbridge to come in, please, on that, and then Mrs. King?
Thank you, Leader. Just picking up a point about the longer-term aims and potential future uses beyond use as a car park. Just to really point out that even those longer-term uses would require an application for this to no longer be common land, either through an application for consent to build on it, which is what we were in the process of doing a few years ago, or to swap. So if there is a longer-term goal to produce even greater facilities on that land, either building on it and providing community facilities or business premises or whatever it might be down the line, that will still require an application in the future to the Planning Inspectorate. Now, that application could be the same application again, i.e. to build on, in which case you'd lose the common land from Haslemere entirely, or at that stage it would be an application to swap the land as we're proposing now. So you either have a net loss of common land, or you have the same, or more or less the same area, I don't know the dimensions, that you have now. Just making that point, really, that this application in either option comes sooner or later. And just one other point, if I may, regarding the withdrawal of the application last time. That was in regard to Haslemere Vision's potential proposals for that site, which never really came forward, as I understand it, rather than the neighbourhood plan from Haslemere. But it was really the Haslemere Vision objections to that application and their potential proposals at that time that led to the council withdrawing that application.
Mr Bainbridge, thank you very much. Councillor Mrs King.
Thank you very much, Leader. Mr Bainbridge has actually said pretty much what I was going to start to say. This report is purely a report for the deregistration of the common land. No matter what happens to it in the future, it has to be deregulated. You might just as well get on with it now. And to be frank, the sooner we sort that car park out, the parking space, no matter what we do with it, the better. It happens to be in my ward. The local community, both the residents and the tradespeople in Wey Hill, not in the centre of Haslemere, but in Wey Hill, are fed up. They can't park to nip to the shops. There's nowhere to go. And so they really are pretty fed up. And they would actually are now very supportive of Waverley's proposals. Thank you, as am I.
Thank you, Councillor King. I think it's fair to say that we've got to do something. This has been almost in a too difficult box for a long time for a number of reasons. And the facts are that the area itself absolutely does no favours for Haslemere, and we have got to do something. And we've got to do something sooner rather than later, and we need to start that process. In terms of the land swap, well, Natural England are supportive. I take on board the comments made by Councillor Round, and obviously there is work that can be done to make that other land more attractive, shall we say, for want of a better phrase. But we have to start somewhere, and we're 6 years down the line. We're no further forward. We have a situation where a lot of the time businesses in Wey Hill are struggling because people have got nowhere to park, and the traders and the shoppers are getting frustrated, and we need to start to do something. So we're moving with this proposal. There are recommendations before you as an executive tonight. Let's also be very clear that longer term, this will make sure that the actual car parking area that is there is used and laid out more efficiently. But, as has already been stated by Mr Bainbridge and Councillor Edwards, we don't know exactly where this may go in the future, and it may be subject to another planning application. It may be that there are other aspirations for that land, and so nothing is a final done deal, because we will need to move forward and consult with residents and with local traders and businesses and so forth. So I see this as a sensible first step. We need to actually sort out this land. We need to put in place this land swap. We need to deregulate the land, and we need to at least start, because we cannot wait another 6 years and we will be in a far worse position. The site will deteriorate far more, and as I say, Haslemere deserves better. So unless anyone has got anything they wish to add to that, can we move to the recommendations, colleagues? Thank you. In that case, we will move to the recommendations, and there's one recommendation under item 14. Is that agreed? Agreed.